Hi, I'm Jodi Daniels, CEO and privacy consultant at Clover Advisors. And today we're going to talk about privacy notices, what they are, where you should have them, and why they're important. To get started, it's really important to understand the point of a privacy notice is to say what you do and then actually do what you say. It's a communication vehicle to explain to the individual coming to your website, application, event, webinar, that this is the type of information you are collecting. This is how it's going to be used. This is why it's going to be used. This is who you're sharing the data with, how you're storing it. It's meant to explain and give comfort to the individual what's happening with their data. And then we actually, as a company, need to do whatever it is that we said we were going to do with that data. So as an example, if in marketing, the team said we are not going to use geolocation data, the privacy notice doesn't say anything about using geolocation data for targeted advertising. Then the marketing team changes their mind and says, no, I think we want to try a campaign like that. What should happen is a review of the privacy notice would determine we don't have that disclosed. And that would be a different use of how to use data. To be able to do or to be able to use that location data, two things would have to happen. One, we would need to update the privacy notice and use that data on a go forward basis. So we wouldn't be able to use the location data on all the people that have already come to our site because we didn't tell them what was happening. Or we would need to change our strategy. It's really important to make sure that the business strategy, every time there's a new product feature, a new marketing campaign, a change in how data is going to be used, that there's a review and consideration of the privacy notice. And if there needs to be any changes to the privacy notice, that those are made appropriately and the data can then be used from that point forward. In some situations, you might have to ask for consent. For a variety of them, it's generally a go forward communication opportunity. So again, make sure that you are saying what you do and then actually have a process in place to make sure that you're always doing what you say. Now, to be able to maintain this privacy notice, how often should you review it? At least on an annual basis. Now, to review the privacy notice on an annual basis, we also should be reviewing the data inventory on an annual basis. Because after all, the whole point of a privacy notice is to explain the type of data that is collected, used, shared, and stored. So if we don't know what kind of data we have and we haven't maintained that or reviewed it in a year, our privacy notice will certainly not be as updated as it should be. When we're actually reviewing our privacy notice, what do we want to have it included? The first section is often data collected. This could be from the individual directly, maybe automatically from digital technologies like cookies and pixels and beacons. It could be information we gather from a third party. How do we use the data? Are we using it for the product or service? Are we going to market and communicate to them? Are we sharing it with third parties? And for what purposes? What about individual rights? These are more common due to privacy regulations growing around the world. And the privacy notice normally says these are the individual rights, and this is how you execute or make a request for one of them. Additionally, there's other subjects that are often included, things like social media. Maybe you have an account log tie-in to a social media handle. What about cookies? There's an entire section on cookies, and we'll cover that in a separate module. The privacy notice should talk about the different types of cookies that you have and for what purpose, and again, what their choices are. Do you buy data from third parties? And if you do, how do you use it? What about the sale of data? Security, how is your data secured? How long do you keep it for? There's a specific requirement under California called do not track. It's due to a browser setting where an individual can say, don't track me. And then the company has the choice to honor or do not honor. And the California law says the company needs to say, does it honor or does it not honor? What about children? You might have very specific children's data that you need to consider. If you don't have any children's data, typically the privacy notice would say, you don't have any children's data. Location of data is your data stored in the United States, in Europe, somewhere else around the world. And also, if you have to comply with GDPR, there's a number of other requirements that you also have to consider. Things like disclosing, are you a data controller or data processor? Do you have a data protection officer? Do you have an EU representative? What is the legal basis for you to be able to use your data? So it's important that you create a checkup for your privacy notice. I mentioned at least annually. And so what should that include? Well, it should review what type of data you have. How are you using it? Who's it being shared with? What vendors? What's changed from the last time that you've used it? Then the question is, well, where should that privacy notice live? It typically is in the footer because it should be on every page where data is collected. And that way, if it's in the footer, you never miss a page. All those digital technologies are generally considered personal data. And since we often have a tracker on almost every page, it's really important to have that privacy notice link on every page. What about a mobile app? Yep, we want it in a mobile app too. That's often in the hamburger menu. Sometimes it's even on the login page when you're first signing up or always logging in. And sometimes even in the footer of an actual mobile app or mobile website. If you're working with any type of other landing page, a lot of time marketers will create a separate landing page, maybe for a webinar or an event. You want to ensure that the privacy notice is there as well. And if there's any type of sort of integration, maybe with a third-party webinar or any kind of co-brand or something along those lines, that there's also consideration for the privacy notice to be shared in that experience. And finally, when we are putting our privacy notice terms and links out there, we want to make sure it's a positive customer experience. We might ask them to consent to the privacy notice or the terms of use. We might have a cookie banner. We might ask them to say, is it okay to share with third parties? And we want to make sure that we've done that in a friendly customer experience. So don't play whack-a-mole with all the different pop-up and consent boxes or terms, or make it in different size fonts and all different highlights and colors, really making sure that you're having a nice streamlined user experience. If you have any questions or would like to learn more, you can visit us at redcloveradvisors.com or send us a note at info@redcloveradvisors.com. Thanks so much.